I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show. Powered by Sports Interaction. Wanna bet?
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
Lost in all of the celebrations that took place in Halifax last night with Team Canada winning at the World Juniors. I thought no one took you up on your one grand challenge, the Michigan Challenge, as I call it.
I know, I'm disappointed. Because when you
Me
put
too.
money on the board, it's already spent in your mind, right? That $1,000 was gone. But I mean, I guess they were right, because what was the quote after the Boxing Day loss to the Czechs? We're not going to Michigan our way to a gold medal.
Yeah, we're not going to skill our way at Michigan or whatever.
Yeah, well,
I
they
don't know.
didn't. Well, I think they skilled their way in a lot of ways. I mean, they have a pretty skillful team and one particularly skillful player. But yeah, no one took me up on it. It's funny. I actually was at the morning skate in Toronto on Thursday, and I met a goaltender named Carter Froggatt, who's a draft pick of the Windsor Spitfires, a kid from London, Ontario, and his family. They were down, just checking out the morning skate, and they had heard our episode, and they presented a pretty passionate anti-Michigan stance from a goalie standpoint.
Oh, I'd love to hear this.
Well, I just had, I think I played forward when I played hockey, and obviously I didn't get anywhere near the NHL or anything like that. I'm not comparing myself to the guys we talk about, but I sort of see the game that way, right? I mean, I was a bit of a goal scorer in the levels of hockey I played at. And so I think about goals, and I really appreciate the best offensive players. And admittedly, if I have blind spots, I mean, I certainly don't know what it's like to be a goaltender. So yeah, they were just having fun with me, but they were mentioning that the Michigan should be illegal and that it's a difficult spot for goalies to be in. And to be, in all fairness, to present the conference, we were just having fun about it. But
I know, but he's also very biased.
well, of course, but I guess it is difficult to stop. I mean, really, you just throw your face in front of the puck, which is what the Czech goalie did against Connor Bedard in the very first game of the tournament. So I'm just letting you know that there is some small, the goalie union is less in favor of the Michigan than the CJ show is.
Right, I can imagine that. That being said, there was a part of me that really, really wanted Canada, maybe not as like a game-winning goal, but as an exclamation point for some player to do the Michigan. And maybe that would have caused a little bit of a kerfuffle with the Czechs, depending on how they see it. But that would have been an awesome way to end that tournament. Yeah,
it would have been good. And I should actually mention the other thing about Carter. He was mentioning he's had 2 Michigan scored on him this year. I believe
biased.
No, but get this. I believe he's 16 years old, playing out in London. And so this actually lends credence to my theory that the younger kids are growing up doing this, practicing this. I think we're going to see still a Michigan explosion as these guys work their way through the ranks and the best of the best reach the NHL. I think we're going to just see more and more Michigan. So I'll take the money off the board for future Team Canadas. But it was there for the 2023 team, and just no one wanted to claim it.
The 2024 team, which I forget who wrote this. It might have been Tony Ferrari or Stephen Ellis, one of those guys who are really into like junior prospects. I think they were saying that like they could have up to 5 players come back next year, but like 2 of them are like Adam Fantilli and Connor Bedard, or at least Connor Bedard is probably not going to come back. What a tournament for that kid.
I actually wouldn't bet on Fantilli being back either. I mean, I know his tournament was more understated offensively, but I thought that he really filled his role well, especially as the games got bigger and they got into the medal round. And that, to my eyes, looked like, so much will be situational, right? Who drafts him? What are the organization's priorities? Won't all just be, contingent on his skill or ability. But I wouldn't be penciling him in yet on the 2024 team either, just because, it's pretty clear Connor Bedard will be in the NHL at this time next year. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Adam Fantilli joined him.
Just with Bedard, let's focus on him for a second. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and be like, oh, I was watching all of his junior games, but to watch him at the World Junior Tournament, and I get it, you can't base a player's development or a player's trajectory in the league off of how well they play at the World Juniors. But I get the hype, the release, the game-breaking ability. Like, I get it. Like, I firmly get it in my mind why he is as good as he is, and he just looks like this special special talent. And the fact that he could go down, could go down, will go down, or has already gone down as one of the greatest Canadian players to play at that tournament. I think that's a nice way to characterize how his last few days have gone for him. And for him to be the best player at that tournament, I mean, well deserved for him. He just looks like a very special player.
Right. I mean, what we have is a snapshot in time, right? This was 2 weeks of competition in the middle of the draft year, in which he was playing against largely opponents and with teammates who've already been drafted, who are older than him. And he was by far the best player on the ice we saw in the games in Halifax and Moncton. I think, that's the fact. I mean, I think it's hard to completely predict or project what he becomes beyond this, because we're dealing with a human being and we don't have a crystal ball. What you also have to remember as you're judging this is that these are the biggest games he's ever played. I mean, I know he played in a prior World Junior. That one wasn't played under the same conditions. It was in the summer. I think that this tournament was as pressure packed probably of games as he's personally felt. And you just saw him rise to the occasion, score those big goals. I think to that quarterfinal game against Slovakia where nothing's going for him. And then he does the move where he just goes through three guys. Like he's like, my shot wasn't working, so I'll do it another way. Seeing him sort of want that greatness or rise to the moment, I think is really a good tell for what's to come. And when you look at his past, it's the same thing. You might not remember this, Julian, but when he played his first game for the Regina Pats, back during COVID, his grandfather actually died either the day before that game or the day of the game. He still wanted to play the game before flying home for the funeral back to Vancouver. And he scored both goals, including the overtime winner and a 2-1 win. And he was like 15 years old in the WHL. You can go back to the Brick tournament, which is one of the big youth events. Scored big overtime winner there. I saw a great video going around Twitter just showing the celebration back then. I mean, this is someone who's had a pattern of stepping up, of sort of, not shrinking in big moments. And then obviously the skill that's evident in his play, I think suggests that you have something special going on, not just in a World Junior, but longer term. And he just seems like the point I want to almost end this tournament on is like, this guy seems like the best of what hockey can be too. I mean, seeing his interview afterwards, I thought was really genuine of him. Like, I don't think he was just saying what he thought was the right thing. Like, he was almost passionate in saying, we're not talking about me. We're talking about this team in 20 years. We're not going to look back on the stats. We're going to look back on the gold medal. I think, just seeing, TSN did a lovely feature. I don't know if you saw it in the pregame on his upbringing. He's the son of a lumberjack. Literally, his dad works in the logging industry. Just seemed like a very well-grounded family, well-grounded kid who, he just loves the game. And I know that there's a little bit of cliche in that, but I actually, that's the overwhelming feeling you get. Like, there was no point, and I'm watching the tournament from afar. I'm not interacting with him directly in those moments, but you just didn't get the sense he was too high on himself or full of himself or being selfish. Even it sounds crazy because at one point he'd been in on 65% of the goals Canada scored, but it wasn't out of selfishness. And so, yeah, I think he's a special person and player. And for sure, there's a lot of NHL teams that are leaving Halifax, whether it's their scouts or GMs or whoever were down there, just thinking about how nice it would be to see him pull on their sweater come June.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it really only really hit me this week that in 6 months' time, we will be in Nashville watching him get drafted.
Yeah. I mean, and in whatever, 8-9 months time, we're going to be watching his NHL debut. I mean, like, I think he could play in the NHL right now. It's just my view. And I know he's not a tall guy. I mean, I saw some of the reporters posting he was standing on a crate to do the scrums in the mix zone, as they call it, at the World Juniors. So we got another short king. He fits in with our podcast pretty well.
He does.
But look, we've seen all kinds of players that don't have massive size, light up the league, whether it's Mitch Marner, Matthew Barzal, Johnny Gaudreau. We could go down the list. We've seen Cole Caulfield, another one I mentioned. I know he's built strong on the bottom end, very, very strong young man. But like, I don't think you need maybe that physical development that always has been there. It'll help over time, but I think he'd be scoring goals if we dropped him in an NHL game tonight. I really do. And so there should be a lot. The hype train has left the station, I think. I mean, it was all there for everyone to see. Like he's been lighting up the WHL, but it's just different to do it on this stage. And, I really thought we spoke at the start of the tournament, Julian, about, are people going to get into this event, this or that? I mean, that was as good a World Juniors as I can remember. It's great to have more countries in the mix, like having Slovakia and Czechia be so competitive. Finland goes out in the quarters, but they could have beat Sweden in that quarterfinal game. Like there was more teams that were legit in the mix to win it. Frankly, the U.S. easily could have beat Canada in that semifinal. I know the game ends up 6-2, but they had so many chances. Thomas Milic, the Canadian goaltender, was just outstanding in that game. And then, Canada was opportunistic in getting some goals. But, it felt like a real jump ball, that tournament. And it was exciting. We had an 8-7 bronze medal game yesterday. I mean,
insane.
Plus what Bedard did, like I was glued to this tournament, just the way it turned out. And, especially once it got going and I've just been home able to watch the games. It was really a great showcase for the sport.
Yeah, for me, like at the beginning, I wasn't paying attention as much because I was still kind of in the holiday break. And then when Bedard started racking up all those points, I think that's when my interest started to ramp up a little bit more. And then getting towards the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then the final, it became like it's the Bedard show for me. And then, okay, Canada, what are they going to do at this tournament? Yeah, I think around when we got to the knockout phase of the tournament, it got really good for me and really exciting. And the fact that it went to overtime against Czechia, the fact that you have the way the tournament's kind of bookended, where they start with the loss to Czechia and then you go to overtime to beat them. Like, again, the only other thing you're missing is Canada winning with a Michigan or scoring a Michigan in that game. But I will say this, just looking at the tournament, high drama, high quality games, some upsets too at the beginning as well. Like it was a really solid tournament. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, even Czechia getting to the final. I mean, most people would have had Sweden winning in the semifinal against them, right? It's because at this level, it's really been Canada, US, Sweden as the top countries pretty consistently, for a number of years now. And there's obviously other. I mean, look, we're seeing so many Slovaks. Like Slovakia didn't even have Juraj Slavkovsky, who stayed with Montreal. I mean, but we're seeing Slovaks and Czechs being drafted near the top of the draft again. And there was a real long window there where that wasn't happening with much regularity. And so, yeah, I mean, it bodes really the big picture. Again, this is a snapshot in time, but it tells us good things about hockey. I mean, you want more countries producing more high caliber players. I mean, that's how the sport, grows and thrives and continues to exist. And so, yeah, I come away from that event and I would say this, it's not because I'm Canadian. I mean, if the Czechs had won, I would feel the same way, that was just a great spectacle of the sport. And single elimination hockey is it's nuts, right? And like one bounce either way, one post, like it's crazy. It's so hard to win. It's just so hard to win those tournaments. And that's why the Canadian kids were on the ice for like an hour after the game, still signing autographs. They didn't want it to end.
Absolutely. Well-deserved for that team to win the World Juniors. Their second gold medal in 5 months because they won in August.
Yes. And thankfully I hold on to my $1,000. So I'll put that to you.
All right, let's bring in DP for You Can Bet That.
You Can Bet That with David Bastel. Brought to you by Sports Interaction. Get in the action and make a play. 19 plus. Please play responsibly.
Welcome to You Can Bet That with David Bastel. Good to see you, DB.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs. We have to talk about Steven Stamkos and the fact that he is 2 away goals. He's 2 goals away, I should say, from milestone goal number 500. And Sports Interaction, they're trying to get on top of this. We're trying to figure out when is he going to score that career goal.
Yeah, that's it. Bang on. It's our hottest prop right now, just because there's so many Steven Stamkos fans out there. The guy's a walking Hall of Famer, multi-time Rocket Richard winner, Stanley Cup winner. He's basically done it all kind of thing, and he continues to do it all. And now it's magical 500. So this is a little bit different for me, CJ, than the Ovechkin 800 that we all talked about as a group a couple of weeks back, whenever that was, because Ovechkin was rolling at that time, and he, of course he nailed it right away. But Stammer's kind of been cold by his standards. 1 goal since December the 14th, but I'll present to you my case. And you guys know me, I don't bet against the Winnipeg Jets. but Friday tonight, it's Stammer against the Jets. He has 30 career goals against the Jets / Thrashers organization. He has a habit of playing very well against this team. I've seen it far too many times. He's 2 goals away. I want a Jets 3-2 win, and Stamkos could get his 2 goals. That's okay, but it's paying an even 9, and those are pretty good odds for him to pot 1. And maybe something less meaningless in the third period when the Jets are up by a couple. What do you think?
God,
are you with me?
I remember when Steven Stamkos went into Winnipeg on the last day of the season with 58 goals and scored 2 to hit 60. That was probably one of his finest individual regular season moments. Maybe there's a little bit of symmetry that's at play here.
And at 9, look, that seems pretty good considering the fact that the Blue Jackets are at 6.42. Then the Canucks after that are at 6. The Blues at 5.51. That seems pretty. 9 is pretty good.
Yeah. See, the odds right now, according to how they base them at Sports Interaction, the target date is Monday, January 16th against the Kraken. It's the lowest odds. So our odds makers in their magical ways have said, okay, here's the schedule of the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's the destination game just based on the previous 4 games before. So what they're telling us is Stamkos will score 1 goal here in the next 4 games, and then the Kraken game will be number 500. I'm going to go against that and say, I'll take your 9. I'll see the 2 goals tonight. And yeah, he hits 500. It's hard not to cheer for the guy. He's been Mr. Everything. And you know what? 500 is just another milestone because it's going to be more.
It's just sacrilege to see you have the Jets doing anything that's negative here. So I'm impressed.
Thank you. I still called the Jets 3-2 win though, right? I mean, it's
you did. You still made a compelling case though, DB. Thank you so much for kicking it with us. Don't forget to check out sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all the best odds before game, in game, and the best props. sportsinteraction.com/SDPN.
Thanks, fellas.
As the gold medal game was going on for the World Juniors, the list of all-star representatives was being released for each division. I don't know if I need to go through every single player who is listed for each division, but some stars, but also some notable omissions. I'd like to know your thoughts on how the NHL All-Star game right now seems to look roster-wise.
Well, it's almost like they were like building a team that would be salary cap compliant or something. Like it's like we need a few grinders in there just to offset the stars. I'm not going to take aim at any particular players because I don't think that's fair. They didn't ask necessarily to be added to the team. That's how it happened. But I really think that this process remains flawed. And they've changed how it's done this year, but the net outcome is the same. We don't have enough stars going to the All-Star game. And, what has changed in my view, actually, in recent years is the young stars of the league, by and large, want to go. Like the previous generation, it was hard to get Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin there. Ovechkin, I believe, has had multiple suspensions for sort of skipping, quote unquote, the All-Star game. Crosby has only played in 2, I want to say. He's been named a number of times. I mean, sometimes it has been legitimately because of injury issues, but I mean, the last generation was a little more reluctant. I think the current guys really want to go, but by having every one of 32 teams, I mean, we got 3 teams, in my view, openly not wanting to win this year. There's another 5 after that probably don't really want to win many games this year. I mean, it feels like an old model of thinking that every team needs someone there. It's almost like rooted in the days where it's like, okay, there's like newspaper reporters from every town and they're not going to come cover our event or something. Fans from these towns don't know these other players because they're only paying attention to their own team and they're not going to watch if they don't have something to watch. But I mean, I think in today's day and age, everything kind of goes viral. If you're a hockey fan, you know of the players everywhere in the league, really. Far more, even, when I was younger, it was just harder to see highlights and all that stuff. And so with this process, we now have in a game missing some of the all-stars. And I know, okay, you're going to go, yeah, but the fans get to vote 2 more players and a goalie in. Well, some divisions have far more than 2 omissions, in my opinion. And look, we all know what happens here. There will be some players legitimately injured who have to miss this game between now and the start of February. I mean, that's just how it goes. And so maybe there's a way that everyone gets there eventually, but I find it quite odd that on the night you're announcing your all-stars, you don't have Leon Draisaitl as an all-star, second leading scorer in the league, won a lot of individual hardware in the past, very well-known player. You don't have David Pastrnak, probably one of the best personalities the game has, an absolute rock star, on the best team in the league to this point, the Boston Bruins, one of the top scorers. You don't have Mikko Rantanen, who's, look, it's I guess you say, well, Cale Makar, we all know what he did last year, but Mikko Rantanen's probably kept the Avalanche afloat during this season. I think there should be room for both him and Cale Makar. You don't have Austin Matthews, who's been to an all-star every year, obviously one of the big personalities, coming off a Hart Trophy win. Maybe certainly not having as dominant of season, but still in the top 15 scorers in the league as you're naming these teams. I feel like you can go down the list and there's just a lot of star power that we're now leaving to chance. Because let's even take the example of the Atlantic Division, right? If you don't have, so Pastrnak and Matthews are 2 guys I highlight. I mean, I think there's a case for William Nylander. There's not room for all 3 of those guys to be voted in. And we could probably go through the rosters of other teams. Cole Caulfield, he wasn't named.
I'm surprised Nick Suzuki was named over him.
Me too, a little bit. And like, I don't want to go in on Nick Suzuki here. Like, again, he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah, heck of a player. Absolutely.
It just feels to me like there's something missing in this process. Like, I think we should be promoting the star part of all-star than like the all part, like all teams, all people. Like, let's focus. Like, I just think the NBA, the other sports would never have this situation. Like, you would not have players like Pastrnak and Matthews and Draisaitl not like leaving it to the fan vote. I mean, maybe I guess they're so popular and they're so prominent that the fans will put them in, but it just feels strange. And I'm not criticizing the players from those teams that got put on. It's just their teams. Like Mitch Marner does have a place there. That's not the argument. The argument is there should be room for multiple players from multiple teams. And it should just be all the players that I think drive the most interest in the league. Like, we should go to sweater sales. I don't have that, but like the jersey sales every year, that'll tell the story. Cause I know Matthews for sure was in the top 5. Someone put it out around New Year's. Like I bet if you find a list of top selling jerseys, like how many guys in the top 10 or 15 are not among the initial all-stars like that? Like, this is kind of, it's pure entertainment, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, we all know the game doesn't matter. I've been to like 10 all-star games. I couldn't tell you who won one of them. Seriously. Like, I have no idea. I remember I told the story. Like, I remember in Columbus, a lot of goals were scored because the cannon went off for both teams and it was insane. But I don't remember much, but it's a spectacle. It's fun. I think the skills competition has a little bit more going for it. Kind of see the players in that realm. Anyway, I felt like that was a bit of a rant that I didn't know was coming, but like,
it's a good rant. It's a great rant. I think you make some great points. There were some counterpoints I wanted to make, but I also think like I'm not crazy about the format with the fact that one player from each team has to be there. No disrespect to Seth Jones, but like, does Seth Jones need to be there? Do we need to see who's another good? I mean, yeah, maybe you want Cole Caulfield or Nick Suzuki there. Brock Nelson, I mean, he's probably having a good year in New York. He is having a good year. Fine. Okay. I'm not necessarily finding the best example of some player on this roster who shouldn't be there, is only really there because of his team. But like, yeah, I'm all for like, you see the list of players and it's like, okay, there's 2-3 guys from the same team. You have Draisaitl and you have McDavid there. You have Rantanen, you have Makar there. You have Suzuki, you have Caulfield there. I'm even surprised. I mean, Nazem Kadri's having a really good year in Calgary, but I thought like maybe like him and like Rasmus Anderson maybe have a chance in Calgary, and maybe there's an argument there. But like, yeah, like I don't see any problem with the idea that like you can have more than one guy just named initially, and then you let the fans kind of decide it. Also, I want a draft back. I want the
Yes.
I want the 2 best players. I want Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon to do a live TV special, probably on TNT. They could probably do it that way, and they pick among the best players. I'm also not crazy about the division format. Like I just like, it's one thing to have one guy from every team, but to have it division versus division, like, okay, like I don't really care about that. There's a lot about the format I don't really like.
They had it right with the draft. I mean, I know that
it was so good.
The players got drunk and said too much, and then the fun police killed it. But like, it was fun. I really liked it. And it gave storylines and it gave something to talk about. And the other thing I'll say, so I remember, I think the 2017, it was the All-Star game in Los Angeles, which I think is 2017 in my brain. It was before Nathan McKinnon had really popped as the superstar he is today. And the Avalanche were in the middle of a 48-point season. And he literally came to All-Star Game Media Day. I was in the scrum. I've never seen this. And he's like, I bet you're surprised to see an Av here. And he just went in on how he's like, he was embarrassed to be there. Like he felt like their team was so bad and that his performance, didn't warrant being there. And like, I wonder, as much as it's an honor for some players, and obviously there's some guys on this list, this will be their one and only chance to do this. It's a great weekend. They can bring their families down to South Florida. I know that there's a nice side to this when you have some of the players that aren't necessarily the stars, the true stars of the league. But, I think that the guys get it too. Like, I don't know. There's probably certain people on this list that if they were left off and they saw, oh, Leon Draisaitl was picked. That makes sense. Or like Austin Matthews was picked, David Pastrnak, Mikko Rantanen. Like I just feel that I'd like to blow it all up. Honestly, I see no compelling reason. I actually think too, the NHL hockey ops, like they're trying to do the best they can under the parameters they can. The minute you tell them, like if the original rule is you have to have 32 teams represented, you're already screwed. Like the math already doesn't work unless you're going to bring like twice the roster size they do. And then there's 100 all-stars, and that doesn't make sense either. I mean, if one out of every 8 guys in the league is an all-star, well, then it's not really a star anyway. But like I don't think the league's trying to screw it up. I think they're stuck in doing it the way it's been done. I think a total rethink is in order for how they do it, how they approach it. I'd like to see more stars of the past be part of it. Like the cool thing with the NBA's All-Star Weekend is like current players that aren't all-stars like want to go and hang out and go to the parties. And like, I think the NHL could create something similar. I don't think they're that far off, honestly. I mean, at least, they've taken the All-Star game last year to Vegas, having it in Fort Lauderdale this year. They're going to have like a beach party. Like I think that they have the right idea. And I do think the best players, young players, want to be there. Like I really believe you're not going to see no-show suspensions from guys under 25 who are stars in this league. The way we did 10 years ago with the stars of the league. It's like something has shifted there. I think in a social media world, like these guys really want to show their personality and have fun at a weekend like this. But they got to start again. They can't, like this format is just, it's perplexing.
Okay. So we both agree that the All-Star draft should come back. What else? Let's imagine the NHL called us both and said, okay, you guys don't like how this is being done. You two do something about it. What are we doing? How are we saving the All-Star game?
Okay. Immediately eliminating. So how many players are going to go into this? They did 32.
So 1 player for each team. And then you're adding 3 players per division. Is that it?
I'm just saying, so right now they added 32 players and they're going to add 12 more, right?
Right. That's how the math works. So it's 3 times 4 is 12.
So it's 44 players. Basically, and it's 2 goalies per division, right? So you got 8 goalies going.
Yeah.
So you're at 36 skaters is what they have. Like, first of all, I think you can take fewer goalies, right? Like and this isn't crapping on the goalies, but it's more like, do you really need 8 goaltenders at the All-Star game? Like, I feel like, let's face it, you want people to be scored on at the All-Star game. Like nobody is watching to see a 2-1 All-Star game.
No.
So I think first you just do away with the divisions entirely. You do away with the team representation, and I'm fine if they brought 40 skaters, like 20 aside, and 4 goaltenders, 2 aside.
Yes. 4 is the number I'm thinking of too.
Now, I think the problem is historically goalies haven't even wanted to play half a game. And so in the old days when it was like East versus West, they would have 6 goalies because you'd basically have 1 goalie per period. That would be my concession here if the goalies were like, okay, we're only playing 1 period each. I would allow the 6 goalies. But let's bring 40 skaters. So first of all, you're adding more players, which I know sounds sort of counterintuitive. And I'm just picking the best 40 players in the league, the stars, the people that drive interest. I don't care if there's like 28 of them happen to play in the Western Conference one year and it's 12 from the East or whatever. I'm sure it wouldn't be that imbalanced, but you understand the point here is I don't care where these guys play. They play in the NHL. That's my only criteria. You play in the NHL and you're a star. And then you do the draft. And I don't think it has to be that much more complicated than that. I really don't. And to me, it would be great if it's, say, McDavid and McKinnon picking the teams, but I don't even think it has to be like, if McDavid doesn't want to do that, which
let Trevor Zegras do it.
That's what I mean. I'm fine if it's like Tage Thompson and Trevor Zegras. Like, I still think that's fun. I think those guys would have fun with it. Like, I don't think it has to, team Zegras doesn't, it's not saying Zegras is the best player in the league.
But he's definitely one of the cooler personalities. And that's why I said Trevor Zegras. Tage Thompson's still coming up into his zone. And I know you're just using him as an example. Yeah. But like, if McDavid doesn't want to do it, like, it might even be legitimately more entertaining if you have Jack Hughes and Trevor Zegras, who legitimately are like could be faces of the generation after McDavid, to do this. Like that could work.
Yes. Like, I think that's all you need, though. Like, this isn't even a radical idea. It's really just get rid of this tie to the divisions, this tie, and then I would play a game again. Like, I know they went to the 3-on-3 tournament and put $1 million on the line and all that. I would just play a game again. I mean, maybe put some tweaks in it or something if you want. But like, that's why there's fewer players, right? Because it's 3-on-3. So you don't need as long a bench, essentially. Yeah, that's what I do. I think that's good enough. Like, I think that would be compelling. It'd be cool if you could really make it matter. Like, I don't know if $1 million moves the needle for these guys. It'd be cool if you could really make it matter then somehow.
That was my next question. How do you view the All-Star game in terms of prestige and maybe it's not the best word to use, but seriousness? Like, when you look through a player's credentials at the end of their career, are you going to say that they're like a 10-time All-Star? Or are you just thinking like, people get voted to these things anyway, you don't think of it that much?
I think that there's like small p prestige to it. Like, I think it matters. Like, if it says a guy's been voted to 10 All-Star teams, that tells you had a pretty damn good career. Like, you don't even have to look at the rest of the stats. But it's not the most important thing, obviously. And yeah, but I think it still matters. Obviously, the seriousness of the event is not high. And what it is, quite honestly, Julian, it's an event for the NHL and their business partners.
Yeah. Like,
most of the league's biggest business partners, if not all, come down and have a good time and go to the game. And it's, the game is kind of a sideline event to it, but it's a big party. It's a chance to, network. It's sort of like a hockey conference, not unlike in some ways the draft and some other big events. Like, it still has a function for the business of the league. I think the challenge that they've run into over a number of years is trying to figure out how it still matters for those within the league that kind of put on this conference. But yeah, I think it still matters, and you could make it matter more if you just had the truest All-Stars named every year. I know it's a shocking idea, but
Well, when you mean matter more, do you mean in terms of player incentive, individual? Would you want to keep it there, or would you be more open to something like, oh, I don't know, the winner of? Well, then again, if you don't do it by conference, it wouldn't work this way. But like there was a time when, like in Major League Baseball,
Yeah, I
the
didn't like
winner-
that.
I unpopular decision. I like the idea that they made it matter in that way, and until they found a better idea, I was okay with it.
I didn't like the idea you could have a team in baseball, and for those that maybe aren't familiar, at one point, baseball's All-Star game determined who had which league had home field advantage for the World Series. I didn't like the idea you could have like a 110 win team in the World Series and an 89 win team in the World Series against each other, and the 89 win team might have home field advantage because their league won the All-Star game. Like that didn't feel fair. Like if you're gonna have a long regular season, which baseball is the longest, but the NHL is a long one, I think it's got to matter. It's got to have some incentive for a little easier playoff path or a little bit more playoff benefit.
Then I think if you're going to do it that way, if you're going to do it with just two teams and the players pick, like you're basically limiting yourself to having it matter from like you say, like, okay, you win it for $1 million and everyone splits the pot. Like that's as far as you're getting.
Yeah. It'd be
unless
nice
that's what you want.
I mean, this is easy. It's not my money, and we're just sitting here pie in the sky it on a Friday morning. But like, it'd be nice if the money could go up. Like, I don't know what amount of dollars would get these guys' attention, but there is a number. I mean, everybody's got a number.
Everyone has their price.
It doesn't feel like the $1 million has added much juice in my experience to the 3-on-3, the tournament style. Like I mean, look, that would be a lot of money for you and I, the split of that, but it doesn't seem like what is it, about $100,000 a player, a little less, $90,000 a player, I think. But for most of these guys, because we're talking about the stars, we're talking about the guys with the heavy contracts by and large. I know there's a few rookies there, Matty Beniers shouting you out, but I think in general, it's just not enough money to make them want to play harder or care or pretend that it matters.
So like, what if there was some venture capitalist who was just like, I have $10 million to burn, do something with it?
Yeah, well, if you're giving each player potentially $1 million, well,
that would. So yeah, we just have to find some VC guy to do it.
Even when you've made 50 million, the idea of adding 1 million for one day's worth of work, it's still pretty appealing, right? Because like that's still you had to work pretty damn hard for the first 50 when they're just handing you one for one day's worth of work. Like that's not so bad.
That's true. That being said, though, I still think we have a better all-star format than what is being presented to us right now. And after all this, we're going to watch the All-Star Weekend, or some people will, some people won't, and we will find so many other things to complain about. I'm tired of the All-Star, the NHL. I'm tired of the NHL All-Star game being this weekend where it's like, man, the league should be so much better, but it just isn't. Because that's literally what it's become over the last few years. It's like, why is this wrong? Why is this being done this way? Why aren't these people here? Why is this insert musical act here performing at the All-Star game? It like, you're right. It's like a whole like business conference thing. Like there's like a financial aspect, but I also think it becomes a breeding ground for complaining.
Well, it's funny though. I went to the All-Star game in Vegas last year and it was a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm not like doing a wink, like I was in the nightclubs. It was just more, it was a fun event. That was actually the first event in the COVID world where we could speak face-to-face to players. Again, those reporters based in Canada, I think our US colleagues had the chance, but I remember they did like a media day and all of a sudden there's like 25 really notable players in a room. It's like, you can just go talk to them face-to-face. It's like, holy crap, this is a world I forgot existed. Like it was, and Trevor Zegras put on a show in the breakaway challenge. Like I thought
robbed.
He did get robbed, but I thought that on the ground it was a lot of fun. But I get it. It's easy to hate. I mean, maybe we're picking the low-hanging fruit here by even kicking at the All-Star game, but I'm actually bothered because I know in talking to people around the league, like there's a lot of people that don't like this. Like there's a lot of people that want to see more stars there. So I think just fundamentally they're not meeting their own objective, and I'm open to even other ideas. I think the draft was such a home run. Like it's amazing to me. It never came back in some form. Like Like, how much fun would that be with two outspoken guys? Like, it would be great.
I don't get why they would go away from that. Let Steve Dangle moderate it or something.
Anyone.
Let us do it. Well, I'll do it.
I'm not sure I'm the target audience, but yeah,
I'd love to do that. I'd love to be like, okay, like, how am I going to get these two guys to, I don't know, say something funny for like 2 hours? Or not 2 hours. It would be much less for a show.
Would Dangle go on stage in like his Leafs jersey or what?
He'd probably wear like an SDPN jersey. I don't think he could get away wearing a Leafs jersey.
I just was thinking the players would be giving it back to him if he went up there with his Leafs jersey.
Oh, they absolutely would. And we'd get a huge kick out of that. But I guess out of interest of like, I mean, then again, it's funny. I was about to say like, oh, out of interest of Steve Dangle not appearing, partial to one team when we all know what he is known for, period. So there goes that.
Don't come into his kitchen. Don't come into his kitchen and tell him how to make the pizza.
Did you see that? Okay. Can we talk? Okay. Before we get to Steak Taps, can we talk about that LFR? Which you're referencing?
It. I watched.
Holy crap. Like that man is fed up.
I know. I mean, here's how I look at it.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to love to give something 16 years of your life where it's been like he's done a video after every Leafs game and he's in his 16th season of it.
Man, that's more than 1,000 hours.
Yeah, that's like, I can see why you go a little crazy. I mean, first of all, how creative is he that he's found a way to do that, found something to say, found a way to be interesting, found a way to build and keep an audience. I mean, I'm not just saying that because we work with him and he's a friend of mine. Like, it's actually seriously impressive, but it does, when you think about like, where were you 16 years ago and what did you love at that time? And what do you still love? Like, there'd be very few things that you'd still be into. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Like,
or maybe there's some things like you were into hockey 16 years ago and you are again, but there was a period in there where you were less into it. You know what I mean? Like, you would have wavered a little bit more. Like, I think back when I was a kid, like, I loved He-Man and peanut butter sandwiches and like, I haven't had
chunky or smooth.
I was a smooth guy as a kid.
Okay. Smooth. Yeah. Also He-Man. Wow. That is a superhero name I have not heard in a very long time.
I'm just saying, I'm still, that didn't last 16 years. That love affair with He-Man. Steve's showing a lot of commitment. Have I ever told you, by the way, I just thought of this. Have I ever told you my baseball All-Star game story?
No.
This is a real story, and I think it's safe to tell now because Children's Aid probably won't intervene. But when I was a kid, the baseball All-Star game came to Toronto.
Yes.
And it was when Skydome at the time was brand new. And
it's still Skydome to me.
There you go. And it was obviously a big deal. And I was a huge fan. But, we didn't have an ability as a family to buy those tickets or probably not even know how to get them. It was pre-internet. I don't even know how you would have got them. But anyway, they did this thing called the Fan Fest at the Toronto Convention Center. And so my dad brought me up to the Fan Fest on the day of the game. We watched the home run derby the night before, and then we came into Toronto, which was always just a big deal growing up in a small town, just to come into the city. That was half of the excitement. Right. And then, so we go to the Fan Fest and they have like all these displays. Like, I'm sure it's just a huge thing now. My memory of it was quite small. And I think it might've been the first one they did. And there's actually draws to enter for tickets that night. And they were doing a draw every hour. So we entered the first hour and I think there was 10 people in the hat or whatever. I'm like, oh, we're going to win for sure. Pull out the name, Julia McKenzie, not Chris or Ian Johnston. So anyway, we're going on the day. This is going to get somewhere, I promise. And we're looking at this thing of Cooperstown, which is where the Baseball Hall of Fame was. And my family had taken a trip there that summer or the previous summer. And so we were just kind of reliving our time there. There's a huge sort of big display. And a guy gets talking to my dad who's in town, and he's in town from LA, an older guy. And they're just talking, about Cooperstown or what have you, baseball. And then at the end of their conversation, the guy goes, hey, maybe I'll see you at the game tonight. My dad's like, oh no, we won't be there or whatever. And the guy's like, oh, what? And he's like, well, I've got an extra ticket. Do you mind if I could give it to your son if you want? And I was like 9 years old. I was like 9 years old. And this is the pre-cell phone era.
No way.
And the guy actually handed the ticket over to my dad. Like, think about it in that moment. Like, theoretically, we could just take the ticket, sell it, do whatever.
Yeah.
And my dad let me go to the game. So
Some random stranger.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, like I walked in on my own.
What?
And like, but I was a pretty serious kid. And like, I'd been to games and like, I knew I could find my section and all that stuff. Like I took that really seriously. And I sat beside a stranger for the whole game and it was awesome. Like at that time.
That's why you said Children's Aid.
Yeah. Because if I told that story anytime in the last like 15 years, it'd be putting my dad in cuffs. I think like, what are you doing? Are you unfit to parent?
Giving away your son. Sorry, the whole time you said like that's Children's Aid, I was pissing myself the whole time.
That's 100% real story though, and I got to go to the All-Star game with a stranger, and I actually I was pen pals with the guy for years after, not years, but a couple years anyway. He was a nice guy. He just wanted to do something nice with his extra ticket. You don't know what to say.
What's the last time you talked to him?
Well, this All-Star game was in 1991, so it's been a few years.
I hope he's still with us.
I'm not sure if he's still walking among us, and I'm not even being, it's 30 years ago. But
Jesus,
yeah, that's a. And then we made a huge display cabinet of everything from that was hung in my basement, basically, of the program and the ticket and the pictures. It was pretty memorable, awesome experience in my youth. And I just think now, that was pre-cell phone, man. So my dad had to be meet me, whatever, at, I'm not sure what our meeting place was, but he had to pick a spot and meet me here when the game's over and just hope that his 9-year-old would go to the game, watch it, and then find his way back to that meeting spot.
Yo, I can't fathom that working out in 2023.
No way. No. And in 2023, you could put an air tag on your kid. You could see where he is. My point is, in 2023, you could at least actually track and know where your kid is at all times. Obviously, he could have a cell phone or she could have a cell phone. But in 1991, you were just trusting the universe was going to look after your son, basically.
Yo, look, I'm just glad nothing bad happened to you. Okay. I'm just glad nothing bad happened.
I mean, there's a lot of good in people too. I think we should.
Yes, that too.
That's part of the story. That the story isn't just that my dad was neglecting his parental duties. The story is that there's a generosity of a stranger. There's definitely a time where most people aren't looking to do something wrong, and it was really one of the great moments of my childhood. So I mean, it's a good news story, but when you tell it looking through today's lens. Coburg Papa, I love you, man.
Okay. Let's get
imagine my dad didn't let me go. Let's play the alternate.
Oh my God.
Imagine he's that looks like a nice ticket, but no, I'm not going to let my son go. And imagine that trip back to Coburg. That would have been a long one.
I was about to say, would you have become as big of a baseball fan if that trip didn't happen?
Yeah, I'm sure I would have, but maybe I would have slightly less love for my dad if he blocked that potential opportunity. I don't know. I'm kidding, but it would have.
Papa, how dare you not let me go to this All-Star game with this complete stranger?
It would have scarred me, man. It's probably no coincidence I am where I am because I always loved going to sporting events. Love. It was my passion, but there just wasn't an opportunity to get to a lot of them when I was a kid. And so now I've made a life just getting someone else to pay me to go to them. So I've really gamed the system one way or another here, but
I was about to say, man, I'm glad you're in the line of work that you're in right now and you don't have to put yourself in a situation what you went through 30 years ago.
Man, now they don't even have physical tickets. The guy would have had to transfer his phone, different age, man.
Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. When the puck drops, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame, live betting on all major sports, and on prop bets. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly.
Different age indeed. Okay, let me get to stick taps. Okay, do you want to give it retroactively to that man, or what do you want to do?
I mean, that would be the nice thing to do, but I can't remember his name. And
You know, wait. Time out. You mean after all that, you don't remember the guy's name?
it was 30 years ago.
But like that guy took you. What? How do you not know his name?
I met him one day once, and it was 30 years ago.
But you said he was his pen pal. How do you not know his name?
Okay, if I dug in a box in my dad's basement, I guarantee you I have those letters from being his pen. So
not
I could
even a first name.
no. Dude, I'm going to let you live 30 years first.
No.
And then I'm going to let you live about 10 more. And I'm going to ask like what your memories are from when you were 8 years old. Because they get.
No.
I'm also.
No.
I don't know if I've admitted this. No. I'm bad with names. Like names freak me out. I can remember faces. If I don't see, I can remember what city you work in or what paper or news outlet you work for. But names sometimes get me.
I'm the same way too. I get it. I completely understand that like names like hurt. I think for a moment as distinct as that in your life to not remember who was generous enough to take you there, not even like a Uncle Jimmy or anything like that. Like that is beyond my wildest dreams. Like what? How do you not know his name?
I just forget the guy's name, but I do have.
That's crazy. That's
somewhere
crazy.
In the basement. I could figure it out.
That's crazy, yo. That's crazy.
If I had more time, I could sleuth this. I could figure out what became of him and all that stuff. But I'm probably not going to do that.
For those watching or listening to this podcast episode, if you happen to know the person,
no one's going to know that. Nobody.
What? Someone might come out the woodwork and be like, hey, so my dad took you to an All-Star game 30 years ago. You don't know. These things have a powerful way of manifesting. The
world is shrinking. The world really is much smaller now.
I found my long lost uncle on Facebook like years ago. Like that can happen. Yeah.
Right. But like that's a bridge too far. Expecting that. So should I give my stick tap?
Yes, please. Yes.
Now I'm just going to do a hard pivot back to the serious hockey. And I'm going to give my stick tap to Jim Montgomery, coach of the Boston Bruins. Kind of infamously fired in his last job as a head coach in Dallas, had to go through treatment for alcohol addiction, worked his way back to this spot. And I must say, I was among those who questioned the Bruins' decision at the time to move on from Bruce Cassidy after last season, just because I think so highly of Bruce as a coach. But they are by far the best team in the league. They won again on Thursday night. Jim Montgomery's done a fantastic job with the Bruins, and he's going to go to the All-Star game as the Atlantic Division's head coach. And I think that's a great story in and of itself, given some of the personal demons that he's publicly had to go through. And I think it's kind of a cool honor for him in particular to get back to this spot and to be among the best of his peers midway through this season.
Well said. For me, to be quite honest, I know we spoke about him earlier this week. I can't think of anyone bigger to give a stick tap to than DeMar Hamlin, the Bills safety, who seems to be, again, progressing from the unfortunate incident that happened to him during Monday Night Football this week. I wasn't sure if you're going to add something there, but I'll just say this. After it seems like when he opened his eyes in the hospital and he's been able to write things down, he asked if the Bills won that game on Monday against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the doctors wrote to him, or at least told him, you've won the game of life. And the fact that DeMar Hamlin, who's had all this love poured out for him, the GoFundMe has risen to however many millions of dollars. I'm just happy that he's progressing and we still have him on this earth. It's just nice to see that even in an unfortunate accident, we've seen a lot of generosity and kindness and emotion, essentially. So I just have to show out for him and just give my stick tap to DeMar Hamlin.
Elite athletes are built different, man.
They certainly are. Next Monday, finally, we'll be back to Monday and Thursday as our regular scheduled podcast drop times. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new episode of the CJ Show. Ask CJ, get your questions in now. And we'll be back on Monday. Siege, great episode as always.
Sorry, Dad.
The Chris Johnston Show.
Powered by Sports Interaction. Want to bet?
Inside the Game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie @JKMcKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.